Hi y'all, I'm Emily Barre from New Orleans, and welcome back to my kitchen for what I think is the last time. This is my final recipe to present, and I think I've saved the best for last. At least according to my kids and their friends, this has been their favorite test kitchen. For desserts, I'm getting ready to show you an Oreo brownie cookie with Philly frosting. First, we're going to start with, over a double boiler, I have a stick of butter. To that, I'm going to add 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips and 1.5 ounces of unsweetened baker's chocolate. The fire is not on. We're going to let the heat from the water and the butter slowly melt the chocolate. So while this is melting, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on it, and we're going to get the rest of the components together. I'm going to put 2 eggs into my bowl, along with a 1/2 cup of sugar and some vanilla. I'm not going to beat this with a beater. I'm just going to mix it up. I'm not trying to beat it, I'm just trying to stir it. So we're going to break the eggs, and we're going to stir the sugar and the vanilla and the eggs together. Alright, that looks like that's mixed well. We're going to come back to that. Come take a quick look at our chocolate. I could get a little sky cam over the top. You can see we're blending the chocolate and the butter together. I still have some pieces of the unsweetened chocolate that need to blend down. I also, when I add this to the eggs, don't want this too hot. So we're going to need to cover it and let this sit for a little while. Okay, next we're going to take our dry ingredients, which is 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And we're going to sift these together. That's why I have the sifter out, just so it's got a nice fine texture to it. I need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I need a teaspoon of instant espresso powder. Coffee and chocolate are a natural together, and this really gives this cookie a wonderful flavor. So down goes a teaspoon of espresso. Now we're going to sift these together just so that our dry ingredients will be in a good smooth texture when it enters the chocolate and the butter and the sugar. Now that the chocolate has been fully incorporated into the butter, I've taken it out of the double boiler so that it can begin to cool. I don't want it sitting over the warm water. And you can see the chocolate is like a nice smooth sauce now. I've let it cool because you don't want to add warm chocolate to your eggs because you'll have scrambled eggs. So now that the chocolate is nice, it's a good temperature, it's not hot at all, tepid. We're going to add the chocolate to the egg and sugar and vanilla mixture. Okay, now we're going to gently stir the chocolate into the egg mixture. And we're beginning our batter. To the chocolate, sugars, and eggs, we're going to now add in our dry ingredients. This was the flour, the baking powder, the espresso, and the salt. One thing that I didn't mention is it's probably a lot easier to not sift the espresso powder. Go ahead and sift your flour, your salt, and your baking powder, and then after, add that teaspoon of espresso. So we're going to now fold this into our batter. Now I don't want to overwork it. I don't want tough cookies. Just need to make sure that this gets totally in there. This is looking pretty good. I have 6 double stuffed Oreos that have been broken and chopped up. And I have 2 ounces more of semi-sweet chocolate chips. To the double stuffed Oreos that have been chopped and the 2 ounces of chocolate chips, we're going to add a tablespoon of flour. And the purpose of this flour to coat the chips and the cookies so that when you put them in the batter, that they don't stick together. The chips don't start to melt into each other. They become individuals. So now that these are coated, we're going to add this to our batter. Continue to shake it and coat so they all get some. And now we're going to fold this into our cookie dough. I'm going to incorporate that little extra flour in there. It actually helps thicken up the batter a little bit. Okay, and now we are ready to make cookies. We have a cookie sheet here with a Silpat on it. So now we're going to take our cookies and we're going to scoop a ladle full, making sure you have at least one piece of Oreo in each ladle. And then we're going to pour it out onto the cookie sheet. Be careful not to crowd these. I usually only put up 8 or 9 at a time because you want to give them room to set up so that when you go to take them off you don't break them. This recipe actually started out as a brownie recipe, but because of the time factor I couldn't get it to cook quick enough. Well, the kids actually like it much better as a cookie because we get some crispness to the cookie, and you still get the wonderful flavor from the Oreos and the richness from the chocolate in the batter. I think this is enough without crowding the pan. Okay, we are going to take this and put it into a 350-degree oven for 9 to 11 minutes. While our cookies are baking, let's go ahead and make our Philly frosting. In the Philly frosting is 4 ounces of Philadelphia cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of butter, 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, I like a little extra so it's okay, and a pinch of salt. And we're going to whip this into a nice consistency of a frosting. Start out low on this so that you don't fling powdered sugar everywhere. In fact, I usually let the sugar kind of get a little wet from the butter. The butter and the cream cheese are both softened at room temperature so that they'll beat nicely. Start it on low. And this is going to be our Philly frosting, which will go on top of our Oreo brownie cookies. So the cookies still have a few minutes left on them. Let's see how they're looking. See if we can get an inside view. Oh, doesn't that look good? You got about 5 minutes left on them. You want to be able to see that the cookie has started to crispen up nicely, but you can start to see the chunks of Oreo sitting up on top. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. We'll pull our cookies out, and then we're going to let them cool, and we'll ice them. See you in a minute. After the cookies had baked for 11 minutes, I pulled them out and sat them on the counter for 3 minutes to sit on the Silpat, just long enough to set up. After 3 minutes, you're going to carefully take them off the Silpat to a wire rack where they're going to continue to cool for another 11 minutes. But it's important to let them sit hot out the oven at least 3 minutes so that they're sturdy enough to make this move. And if you start to get crumbs on your spatula, you got to get rid of those because that will break the cookies that you're trying to get off. While our cookies cooled on the wire rack for 11 minutes, I actually had time to put another 11-minute batch in and finish out the rest of our dough. So with the amount of batter that we made, we're able to make 20 cookies. These are cooled for the 11 minutes, they're ready to handle, and these are the ones that we're going to ice with our wonderful Philly frosting. Before I ice them, I just want to tell you, I don't ice them all at one time. What I generally do is I take the cooled cookies and I place them underneath a dome. And that way, my guests or the kids or whoever's coming by for it, they can take a nice fresh cookie and they can ice it themselves. So these cookies will stay for 3 days under the dome nicely. So what they do is they come take a cookie, and then I have the frosting in a little container sitting in the refrigerator. It's usually best room temperature as soon as it's done. And you're going to spread the Philly frosting right over the top. This is the cream cheese, butter, vanilla, and powdered sugar. This makes the best cookie. I honestly believe my girls are right. I think I saved the best recipe for last. You've got to try the Oreo brownie cookies with the Philly frosting. Oh, that is so good. I want to thank Kraft and the makers of Philadelphia cream cheese. I have thoroughly enjoyed the competition. I'm actually sad to see it over. Thank you, and I've enjoyed it.